So here are the parts for the landing gear covers. So that big piece is going to go over and make basically, I guess it covers bungees and stuff that are in the Oleo Strut area of the landing gear. And the other pieces, we'll show you what those actually do. First, you start with grabbing this thing and you basically kind of make a nice fold in the middle. And again, fold it around something round. Now in this case, I really blow it. You'll see. And then match up the back ends. Well, the back ends don't match at all. So I had to sort of modify my hold and kind of grab it. And then I ended up with an oblong front end, but I kind of squished it together and then I fixed it later by putting that inside like that. And as long as you round it out again, you'll be all right. It doesn't have to be perfect, but you do want it to look pretty dang nice. But as long as you end up with your tail end there, lead trailing edges coming together, you're good. And of course, all the edges have been painted or hit with a Sharpie in my case. I'm just making sure that these pieces on either side are slightly curved because they're going to go around that teardrop shape that you saw. So I'm kind of making that into an airfoil. That looks pretty nice. I'm surprised how well that turned out. And then you add a little glue to your piece. And you're going to stick that teardrop piece in to that area down there. And this is on the bottom, the bottom side, kind of with the straight edges. It's got like two an angled edge on it that comes kind of to a small point on the bottom. You can kind of see it there. There's a short edge and a slightly longer edge. That's the part that goes towards the wheels. And so this part fits in there, and you can see that cutout is there because that's what's going to go over the strut, the main Oleo strut. And here it takes me a while because my fingers are big and I'm trying to hold it and drop things, and it's pretty typical of how I work. But I get this in there and kind of close it shut because everything's pre-measured or pre-bent. It goes together pretty well. Now I just take time to make sure it's level. And when I did it, it seemed to make sense to have it inside so that the outside bungee cover thing wraps around that. In other words, that teardrop shape isn't butt joint on top. It's actually inside, and it forms an edge on the inside. But the side pieces are lower. They're basically level with that teardrop. Now there's a slight bend in the teardrop, so I'm grabbing this and kind of bending it because it does, when you look carefully, the angle is a downward angle on the trailing edge there. So now I did that and I put a little glue all around there. Seems like it's excessive, but it'll help later. And then I'm going to put this down there and hold it shut. And then I realized, dummy, you got to put some glue on the trailing edge. So put a little glue on the trailing edge, and then you're ready to squeeze everybody together. So make sure the trail end of the pointy edge of the teardrop is inside like that, and then you carefully close it and carefully close your trailing edge. And now it's a matter of just making sure the glue dries and that you have a nice even look to this. This basically, again, will slide over that main strut that's under the wing. You'll see what happens when we do that. Squeeze it, make sure it's nice and tight, and then let it dry a little bit. That piece, that hole, by the way, that rectangular hole, I made a little bigger than what they call for because I have my little piece of brass that's attached to my balsa wood to strengthen the main Oleo strut. And so I think it might need to be a little bit more open. And there I'm just flattening, tapping, making sure I've got that thing flat on the bottom because it'll be something that's visible maybe when you look up from the airplane underneath. All those times you're sitting underneath the airplane looking up at it. So there's that piece done. Now there's a tiny little cylindrical piece. It's very small, but it's sort of a joiner that goes on the bottom of that. So it looks to me like the main workings of the undercarriage, all the girdery stuff that would give it shock, would be probably in that big streamlined cover. And then this is just covering the main telescoping piece of, or if it was telescoping, I don't know, but the main Oleo strut that goes into and will attach to the wheels and axles and all that. So this thing gets rolled. You roll something like this that's butt joined further than it needs to be so that it basically wants to stay together. And then I put some glue on there, and again, you can't tell because the cinematography, but what I'm trying to do is butt join this together with the glue and kind of hold it together with my fingers. And I kind of press on it so that I'm almost making it oblong. I'm putting pressure along the seam so that the sides that make the seam kind of splay out and they come in and are sort of almost perpendicular to each other, and then they make a nice seam. So now, this piece literally slides over. I didn't even bother putting glue on this because once it goes through that, I just push it down and dang it, it's beautiful. It just slides right in. Fits. I did a little bit of sanding on the Oleo to make sure it would fit around there. I rounded the edges, but yeah, it fits very, very well, indeed. Now I'll put a little glue at the base of it because that's where my little black collar is going to go we just made. And in this case, I think I put this on a little early because when I put it on, I should let it dry longer. I put it on, it actually splits, but that's okay. Make sure the seam is in the rear, which makes sense. And I'm just making sure of that, and then I'm just pushing it down carefully. But as I pushed it, I noticed I got it all the way down. I gave it a little push with my residual fingernails. And there it is, butted up against. Looks good, but then I noticed I split it. Not the end of the world. No one's going to notice that much. And then I can touch it up with a Sharpie or a paintbrush. As we continue along here and we put the rest of the struts onto the landing gear, you'll see we're going to need to anyway. We're going to need to going to need to paint some stuff up with black to hide some things, but that'll come later. Anyway, that is the covering, and then, I mean, it looks great. And, oh, there's a little tab there, though. I was trying to get things a little bit smaller in sand, and I got a little piece of paper on there. But these are those pieces that cover that part of the landing gear, and you can see they're straight. Well, you can't see, but they are, and they look nice and streamlined, and they look cool. The angle is right for having it sit down on its mains, so it looks good. Looks really good. Now, I added nacelles, and they turn out to be really easy to add on, and they're slick. They're really cool. So I'll show you how I did those. Cut these out, edge Sharpied them in black, and then start rolling. And so I roll it so that the larger side of the brush is going to be towards the wing because it's going to be, conical essentially. You roll it with something that's, just getting it started. I tend to do these in gradations. I don't do it all at once with like a tiny diameter thing. I try to start like this, and you're breaking the fibers and you're forming it to make it curve. You want to make like these parts that are the parts of like a end of a shuttlecock there. You want those to be curved for sure because they're going to form the tops that attach to the wings. Then I take my smaller diameter piece of wire or tubing or whatever you want to use, and you roll that, and now you're kind of refining the shape. And you roll this over. You want to make sure the tab gets rolled so it's curved. Anything to make it so it fits together better and easier, so you're not messing around too much. Because a conical shape is actually kind of hard, I think, in terms of gluing it together. But now what I do is I try to put it together as best I can, and that blue color is nice on those tabs, so you can really tell what you're doing. So what I do is I sort of line up the tail ends there, the tail of the shuttlecock. I get them even as best I can. There's no glue yet, but I kind of hold them in that position because I figure that's where they're supposed to be. They're supposed to be lined up like that, and they're supposed to look good. So I grab those with my tweezers, and then I roll the front end so that it actually, I'm holding that. You can see the front end isn't together, but now I roll it together, and then I over-roll it. See what I'm doing? I'm turning in my fingers, and I've gone past that line. But that's because I'm trying to, again, make that front end of the cone roll too far so the diameter is small, so that when I release it, it kind of comes back to a nice restful position that's really close to where it's supposed to be. So I'm rolling it between my fingers. Once you're satisfied, add some glue. And in this case, what I ended up doing on these nacelles, what seemed to work, was I started with the front end, got that glued, and then I put in the rest of it in the tail section, the tail end down there where I'm doing now. And it seemed to work really, really well. So, boy, what a weirdo. It takes me a long time to figure out what I'm going to do. I get this over and I line up to get rid of the blue as best I can. And these things always work better off camera, and you practice, and then when you do it on camera, things don't work as well. Acting is a cruel mistress. So then I squeeze that front end, which looks good. A little glue came out, that's fine. Now you can see the blue color on the rest of the seam, and I'm trying to sort of get that together. And as I do that, see, I'm squeezing it, and I'm getting it together, and there it is. I'm using my thumb and forefinger to squish the trailing edge a little bit. And anything that doesn't quite come together, we can paint up, and the seam will go seam side down, so you won't see it. The top side will be the pretty side. Then I'm squishing the front end to make sure that it looks round, because a little tiny piece of round black paper goes in there. I made my own, by the way. The ones that came with the kit were too small in diameter, so I made these other ones that are just a little bit bigger. They're like 4.5 or 4 millimeter or something. There I am making sure that I've got it rolled right, and then I go in the front and kind of twisty to make sure it's circular, and then I try to refine a little bit of the back end there. Now I add some glue to the front, and then I just lick my blade carefully, and then usually that works, and then drop that right in the center, and then use my fingers to get rid of the excess glue and kind of put that in there. They're all slightly different sizes. This one didn't fit as well as the other three, but it's fine. It'll glue fine. That's where the propeller's going to go. And now see, I'm making sure that I got a curve along those pieces that go back over the wing itself. But that's the nacelle. Super efficient, easy, looks great. There I saw that my front end was kind of going in a little bit, so I'm just going to turn it over, hold it flat, and tap it so that now it will be, excuse me, now it will be perfectly flush and look good. So there it is. Looks pretty dang good. Now, I've built many a plastic model where things don't fit at all. And so when I take this thing and put it up to the wing, I think you will be thoroughly amazed. There I am rolling that, again, to give it a curve, because there's no structure there, and you want it to curve over and not be flat against the top of the wing. You want it to be curved. Lower seam is on the bottom side, so we grab our little aeroplane, and we're just going to slide it on like that, and it covers the white part, and it fits wonderfully. Kind of amazing to me that a paper model put together by hand and designed by hand, no computers, fits like this. So the folks who made this did a heck of a good job. Put in some glue. I put in a fairly liberal amount around the edges, all the way around, so that if I contact the wing roots or the leading edge of the wing, it'll give me some contact. And then of course the top and bottom of the petals there will attach to the top and bottom of the nacelle on the wing. Scrape off the little excess once in a while that I put on there. You just take your fingers and you kind of squeeze it like that. You get off excess stuff. And any glue that comes out, again, this stuff, remember, dries clear as a bell, so it won't matter. And you can take off the excess. Now, you just slide this on, and like I said, I built many a plastic model where nothing fits like this. I just built a Revell, a brand new B17 recently. Nice 1/72 scale kit, nothing wrong with it. But my gosh, there was some serious fiddly tootling around to make it even come close. This thing, you just squeeze it in place and it fits. I'm thoroughly impressed. And those nacelles look cool. They're so streamlined and they shoot out like they're straight. Now you're making sure they're straight and you're making sure that they're even, so they're not, one's not cocked up, one's not cocked down, because they want to be level with each other in line. But you know, this thing, man, it's neat. And the design of the airplane is cool. You can see so much of a Ju-52 in it. Like the canopy looks like a J52. Even the landing gear kind of looks like a J52. Um, and of course the corrugated aluminum, that's all from the World War I series of tin donkeys that Hugo Junkers built, like the D1, like the one that's at Le Bourget. Um, so, and they had an observation airplane, a J1 I think it's called, that was built like this. Um, so this thing would have been a heck of a neat bomber. And I wonder if it wasn't designed early enough that maybe they were thinking of that. I don't know. I do not know with the Providence. I don't know where this one really came from. I know it was from the 20s, but there I'm touching up a little bit. And as I said, we're going to have to touch up some landing gear stuff with black paint and a brush soon. So we can also go back and use a brush. I should have used black paint for this, but there was a piece showing up there, and now it looks like a gigantic Sharpie went down the bottom of the airplane, which it did. So there I'm kind of ruining the day I did that, but that's okay. But this thing now, just checking to make sure it looks good, everything's straight. Boy, it's a pretty looking, interesting airplane. I wouldn't say pretty, but cool. Now the propellers, I've already taken them. They're two-sided, folded together, and letting them dry, and I'll cut them out. They go on of course, the front of the nacelles, like so, when I'm ready. They'll have to be twisted a little bit to give it a little bit of corkscrew effect. These are little spinners that go on the front of each propeller, I think. But there she is, looking kind of majestic. My fillets in the wings hide all my errors. The landing gear looks good. I don't have lots of crinkles. The only place I have crinkles is in the rear fuselage, where I've squeezed it accidentally while holding it. And now I've had some bends in there because I don't remember having any formers back there. So that's my own fault. But those wheels look great. Or the landing gear looks great. So, and the tail, like I said, came out nice. So there it is. Further along, really work on the rest of the landing gear next, props and a few details, and we'll be done.